Sounds good. Is it recording?
Yes.
Okay. I'm like, I don't see anything. All right. Hello everyone. Thank you all for spending your evening on what is today? Today's a Tuesday. Yes, on a Tuesday. So that way we can talk things Nearpod. Again, if you are able to, I would love for you to join our Nearpod deck, and you can do so by either going to nearpod.com, entering this 5-letter code that you see on my screen that I've shared with you, or I've also placed a link in the chat, and you can go ahead and click that. You'll notice that as soon as you entered into the Nearpod session, that there is a Google form there for you to fill out. The session that we're in, you can go ahead and mark Nearpod 101. That's to help me track. And then also I like to send you resources afterwards that you can use to further your engagement with Nearpod. And if you don't have a chance, so just for the sake of time, if you don't have a chance to fill out this form, because as soon as you'll notice, as soon as I move the screen, then yours will move as well. So we can come back to the form later on. So again, thank you to those of you that are joining us. I've placed the link for our Nearpod in the chat. Missed that at Q. Darlene, just remind me at the end, because I'm not going to remember right now. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and move forward. And so this first part, go ahead and using the drawing tools that are there, or you can upload an image. I want you to go ahead and share how you are feeling this evening. I'm going to start the activity. You'll notice that I did place a timer, so you have 45 seconds to do this. As the teacher, you have control over whether or not you want to place a timer on certain interactive slides, like the drawing one. You can also do this for a poll, for open-ended questions, and you get to determine like what that time looks like. So you can control the seconds and the minutes. You'll also notice that on my screen, I'm displaying everyone's images. As soon as you start drawing or doing anything with the tools, you'll notice that it shows right away that you're in progress. So this was something that's newly added into Nearpod, where we get to see responses in real time. And then once students have submitted, then it will turn green. You'll also notice that the images on where I've shared, there's no names here, because as the teacher, I can determine whether or not I want to show student names or not. So in the bottom right-hand corner, if you're looking at my screen that I've shared with you, it says show student names. I could do that, and then the names appear. But because I am showing this live with you and I'm sharing my screen, I like to keep it anonymous. And so that's something that you can contemplate when you are working with your students. I really love to keep it anonymous with my students as well, just because I want to give them a safe space for them to go ahead and share their voice and not worry about any ridicule from their classmates. The other option too, so like I can go through and see these. Oh, I see somebody has like something with their head. So the other option too, let's say you aren't projecting or you aren't sharing your screen so that everyone can see, because, well, the students are on the deck themselves. So if you want to make it so that way, you know, the students only have to focus on their Nearpod deck and not have to worry about toggling between what you're sharing and what they're doing. Then the nice thing is, if I wanted to share out, then what you'll see is that I went ahead, chose a particular one, clicked share, and then you'll see that image appear on your computer. You'll also notice that it appears anonymously. So something that I always like to tell my students is that, you know, I'm gonna make sure that I share at least a response from everyone. And when I do that, you can go ahead and have a party, but do it silently in your head. I don't need to see you celebrating because I'm gonna make sure that I at least share at least um, one shared response from the student throughout my whole deck. So what I like to do ahead of time too is I like to count and see where are my interactive slides, where am I going to have students responding, and then I want to make sure, okay, if I have 30 students and I have 6 slides, interactive slides, then I'm going to say, all right, for each slide I want to show 5 students to make sure that I at least display one from every person. Okay. There was a question. Yeah. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so used to like doing that. I don't want to take away your job. So go ahead.
Well, so there, it's okay. I didn't know if you were, I didn't know if you saw it or not, but there's, the question was, if the timer goes off, do we still get the students' work?
Yes. No, they can. It looks like that I saw some that were submitting afterwards too. So if they don't press submit, it will show yes. So even if they like miss that timer, but they started to draw on it, it will still submit for them, whatever is there. Yep. All right, so we're gonna move forward. All right, so for our next slide, we're gonna play something called Time to Climb. This is actually built into Nearpod. Students love a time to climb. So as the teacher, you get to decide what type of questions you have that you can set up. So I do digital citizenship at my school. And what I like to do is to review the previous lesson that I've done with my students. I go ahead and set up a time to climb. I usually do no more than 3 to 4 questions. And it's just like a quick review. The nice thing is with the questions, you can set it up so that way it includes images, or it could just be all words. So like with my littles, I like to set up questions that have images as their response. And then for my olders, I like to mix it up and forth. All right, so you'll notice again that as everyone is selecting their avatar, you'll notice because I am hiding their names, you don't see the names hiding popping up on the shared screen. But afterwards in my reports, I will see all this information and be able to access it. So we're still getting some. I will say though, just because of the time that we're in where everyone is using the internet, and Nearpod does take a lot to share with our students, that if you do choose to like do Nearpods, I would say do them in short spurts. Really hone in on what's the purpose, be concise with it. So if you are going to do something as a time to climb to review, then maybe the time to climb is the only thing that they're doing on that Nearpod. Or maybe you have like a check-in slide and then a time to climb to review, and then maybe a closing slide, and then that's it. But I do want to advise you all to like think about when you are setting up your Nearpod lessons, especially right now when so many of us are on remote learning, that it does take a lot of bandwidth to go ahead and host those. So then you might have some students who are struggling to get on the time to climb, especially because of how much it means. So I just want to, I always like to caution people about that one. So we're going to go ahead and start because it looks like we kind of slowed down with participants. So again, I've set up the timer. So just to review about a time to climb, you'll notice that it seems very similar to like Kahoot, right? Or quizzes where the faster that you answer, the more points that you get. Um, what else are some things? Again, about the bandwidth, you saw that it was kind of like lagging. You can set it up so that way the questions are mixed for everyone. So at the end, then you'll see what the culminating points are. Um, Trying to think of what else to point out. Are there any questions? Yes, so a time to climb is part of Nearpod. There are some built-in time to climbs already built for you that you can select and then use those, or you can go ahead and create your own, sort of like what I just did. So I created my own, and I was able to select what type of questions and answers I wanted. To set the timer as well. So I set the timer so that way I think it was only like 15 seconds, but I believe you have options of 15, 30, or 45 seconds. Yes, definitely super engaging, but again, just keep in mind about the bandwidth with when you're doing it with students, and maybe you just want to do a time to climb with them, and then later on maybe do another Nearpod lesson with them with something else. All right, so we're here to talk about Nearpod, and so you've already got to engage with Jen will play later. You've already got to engage with a couple of slides from Nearpod that are already part of it. So you did a time to climb, and then you were able to engage with the draw it slide. And so before we go any further, I want to also point out to you, so on your end as a participant, you have the option to take notes. So you'll notice, again, on your screen, you don't see it on mine because I'm the teacher, but in the upper right-hand corner, you'll notice a little paper with a pencil. If you click that icon, you are able to then send this presentation in a PDF editable form. You can send it to your email, you can send it to your drive, or if you have a OneDrive, you can do that. As soon as you make the selection, and you have to like give it permission if you're doing Google Drive, then a space will open up so that way you can take notes. All the notes that you take will also be available on that PDF editable document for you. And then any slides that we go through today will also appear on that PDF. Any links that are here will be clickable for you to access. Just to let you know too, so let's say you're doing this with your students and you had 36 slides, but you only got through half of them, right? And your students were taking notes and everything. Only those 18 slides that you covered in that lesson will appear on that editable PDF form. So only the slides that you cover will be there for students to access. Is there annotation ability on slides? So as someone who's presenting right now using Zoom, I could annotate. As for students, no, not in this case, not right now. So that's why Nearpod came up with the notes part, so that way students can go ahead and take notes. But here's something to think about, Alyssa, with the annotation ability, that once students get their PDF editable doc, then they can go ahead and make any other annotations or add anything to it. And then what I like to suggest to teachers is that you can actually send your Nearpod presentation to your Google Classroom to set up as an assignment, right? They would click on it, join in the session if you want to set it up live, and then afterwards, they're going to turn in that editable PDF to you as their assignment. So that way, then you can see what notes they were taking and seeing any other things that they wanted to add to there. So I love to suggest that to my teachers. I've done this with 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I haven't tried it with the K2s yet. Maybe that's something we'll strive for this year, but I really like to go slow and teach my 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders to do this in the classroom, and then they turn that in as their assignment on Google Classroom. All right, we're moving forward. So you see me for, 18 minutes, and so many of you probably don't even know who I am. So my name is Leticia Citizen. I am an I4 coach at Hawthorne School and Beverly Hills Unified School District. And the 4 I's that we really focus on are instruction, individualization, innovation, and inspiration, all with surrounding technology and how we can enhance our teaching and then help our students to expand their learning. Um, and so I'm starting my 3rd year as an I4 coach, but this is my 21st year in education. I am on Twitter, so you can find me at City Coach on Twitter, CITI Coach. And then also you'll see that I am an ambassador and a trainer for many ed tech platforms because I really believe that they truly engage my students, give them or allow them to express their voices in a variety of ways. And then on top of that, they also listen to the feedback of teachers and the students. So Nearpod is definitely one of those platforms that I am an ambassador and a trainer for. All right, so enough about me. I want to go ahead and find out who is in this space. So if you could go ahead, you'll notice there's a box at the bottom that says share thoughts and or images here. Go ahead and share your name, your school, your grade, your teaching position, and then make sure that you click post. Oh, and just as an FYI, don't press enter or return until you've typed up everything. I should have said that first, because then it's gonna like become a post-it. So this slide is called the collaborative slide. It's naturally in Nearpod. You'll see that it looks very similar to Padlet if you're familiar with Padlet. The difference is, however, that on the collaborative slide, you aren't able to then respond to your classmates, but you can go ahead and heart it. So I like to tell my students, as your classmates are responding and after you've given your response, then to go ahead and read what's there. If you notice any trends, be ready to share about that. But then I also say if anything steps out, like, jumps out at you, or you're like, man, I didn't even think about that one, or whatever it is, it really speaks to you, then go ahead and heart it. And then again, we take time to talk about like, all right, what trends are you seeing there? What are your classmates talking about? What is something that like you have questions about? And so now if, you can go ahead and start to engage in discussion with your students about the responses that are here. All right, so you seem like we have a lot of littles here. Ventura from all over. Oh, upside down picture, Nairi. Thanks for sharing that one. And Jen's here. Thank you, Jen. All right, so thank you so much for sharing. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and move forward. All right, so this next question is a poll. And so I want you to tell me which one describes your familiarity with Nearpod. So here we go. And so again, just like with the other slides, you'll see responses in real time. Okay. Again, you'll notice that I could click to see the student names, but at the moment I have them hidden. All right, and now that the time is up, I could go ahead and share out the responses. And so you should get a pie chart that appears on your screen. And again, these are great opportunities to have a discussion with your students where you can bring in math. So you can say, which response was the most and how do you know? What evidence do you have? What do we need to do as a class? So depending on what type of questions you have there, you can truly engage your students. So we have the majority of us say that you've used Nearpod a few times. We've got some people who've heard of Nearpod. Good. We have no one that said near what, and so that's good. You're in a good place to be there. And then we've had quite a few who didn't answer, which is perfectly fine. All right, so we're gonna move forward. And again, with this slide, you notice that there was a timer. as the teacher, again, you can determine whether or not you want a timer there, and then you can determine what that time is. All right, so the big question is, what is Nearpod? It's definitely a presentation tool to make teaching and learning more interactive. You can easily download and customize ready to teach lessons. So there's a library that has well over like 8,000 lessons on Nearpod that you can take, and then you add them to your library, and then you can make them your own. You can create interactive lessons in just minutes, your own self. You can collect comprehensive student assessments, and then the idea is that, you know, you're hoping for 100% student participation. So there's been a lot to happen. Are there any questions so far? Like, you can either put them in the chat or you can unmute yourselves to ask. Oh, yay. I'm glad to hear that, Jen. The slides ELA lessons to Nearpod. Yes, definitely. Thank you for sharing that, Janine. You can definitely take all of your like PowerPoint presentations or all your Google Slides, and I'll show you now. I like to build in Google Slides. You can also just build right into Nearpod, but let's see, I can take this one. So here's a slide deck that I had, and there's only 2 slides. What you can do is you want to get the add-on, okay? So you'll notice there's also a Pear Deck one too. Yes, I use Pear Deck. If you go to add-ons, you're going to say get add-ons. So this is in Google Slides. Click on add-ons, click get add-ons, and you want to go ahead and find Nearpod, add it to your slides. And then what happens is, once you have it, you're going to click Nearpod, open Nearpod, and what's going to happen is all those Nearpod interactive slides are going to come right here into Google Slides. Okay, so I have all these options that are here. These are all the different interactive slides. I've got PhET simulations. Now you have video where you, if anyone's familiar with Edpuzzle or EduCanon, where you can insert questions within the videos. Nearpod just released that for everyone August 5th, I believe. You can bring in any type of web page that you want to. Sure, I'll show you the PhET installation. I'll click on it. And you'll see that I have different options here. Okay, so let's say I did the fraction matcher. The thing is though, I won't be able to actually like play it for you because I'm in the teacher view. But this is basically like I brought in that PhET simulation. It's like calculating, and then it's gonna kind of like have a little picture appear there. And so there it is. And so again, because I'm in building mode, I won't be able to do it. But yes, it's mostly like math and science. That's what the PhET simulations are. But then you can see I have all the options here, even Flipgrid. Flipgrid before, you had to like get the link and put it in, and then the kids would be shot into Flipgrid. Now Flipgrid comes right into Nearpod, which is so awesome that you can do that here. So this is basically how, like, again, I can take all my old Google slide decks. If you have PowerPoint slide decks, you're gonna actually put those into Nearpod itself, and that's where you're gonna build to put in those interactive slides. But that's what I like to tell people. You know, I like to use the term like it's like Google Slides on crack when you like combine it with Nearpod, because now you're putting all these interactive slides and having accountability along the way with your students. Okay, let's see. But you can definitely use either. Oh, Darlyn, I did that. I did my back to school slides on Nearpod. Oh, game changer with the parents. Like I had a slide in there where they had to like draw their family. That's a kicker. I was able to put like my my surveys for them, or like get more information about them. I ask them to like share what would they like to teach our students, what, you know, what skills that they have. Like Nearpod was such a game changer. So I would highly recommend doing your back to school presentation using Nearpod. Let's see, we explain what the Zoom integration is. Oh, yeah, so I haven't used it yet because the Zoom at first it was still in beta, but the basic idea is like you would click, let's see, I'm gonna go to Nearpod. So you'll notice that when I hover over my lessons, it gives me the option to do live participation plus Zoom. And the idea, again, is that like it will open up the lesson, and it will also, it will make it so that way the kids still see you and see the Nearpod. But I haven't done it. Yeah, I haven't done it yet because I don't want to do anything because it could mess us up. But like when you have time, just play around with it. But make sure it doesn't blow up anything, Geraldine. Suppose, or do they need to submit? So to clarify about the PDF, yes, students would need to submit them to you. So it's not, I know like in Pear Deck, when you do the takeaways, you also get a copy of the takeaways. Nearpod is not set up that way. So if you are using Google Classroom, I always suggest to teachers that's what students could submit is that PDF that they get with all their notes. Otherwise, if you're not using Google Classroom, maybe you're using Seesaw. Well, students could upload that link to Seesaw for you to check that out too, or they could just go ahead and share it with you. But teachers do not go ahead and get their own copy. Sorry about that. All right. Yes, that is correct. You can see all of their work that's wherever they answered on the interactive slides, that does come into your reports. All right, so we're gonna move ahead. All right, so here's a quick video. So I believe it tells you to watch my screen, and then you're gonna notice that it's gonna stop and ask you a question. So here we go.
Introducing Nearpod. With Nearpod, you can make every lesson interactive.
All right, so go ahead and answer the question. With Nearpod, you can make every lesson A, another worksheet, or B, interactive. So again, as the teacher, I'm seeing all of this information come in real time. All right, so we're gonna continue.
Launch lessons your students can't wait to join with collaborative, engaging activities like virtual reality, simulations, and gamified quizzes. As the teacher, you'll always know where your students are with Nearpod's formative assessments, including polls, open-ended questions, draw-its, and more.
All right, so name what type of formative assessment found in Nearpod. And again, as students answer, you can see. So we've got draw it, we've got polls. An ended question. And then you'll also notice too that on the teacher end, I can see it gives me a percentage of participation from my students. So that's another way for you to keep an eye on how students are doing. And so I'm going to continue on just for the sake of time.
Get started with what you already have. Upload any of your favorite resources, PowerPoints, Google Slides, and videos, including directly from YouTube. Then, add in media and formative assessment in a few clicks. And now you can add questions directly into videos to make them interactive. Get started even faster with our library of pre-made lessons and videos, built in partnership with some of your favorite brands. You can use them as is or customize to meet the unique needs of your students.
All right, so can you customize lessons that are available on Nearpod? Either A, most definitely, or B, don't bet your life on it. Yes, Chrissy, this is definitely like Edpuzzle, or if anyone's used EduCanon, the same idea. As of now, you only have two question options. You either can do the multiple choice or you can do the open-ended. Okay, we're gonna move forward.
Once you're ready to launch your lesson, choose from 3 teaching modes. In live participation mode, you control the pace and students participate on their devices, either in person or remotely with web conferencing. In student-paced mode, students move through and participate on their own, whether they're working from home or in class working in centers, stations, or groups. With front-of-class mode, you can use Nearpod without student devices and facilitate collaborative discussions.
All right, so how many modes does Nearpod have to launch a lesson? 2 or 3? All right, and let's finish up the video.
Imagine what you can do with Nearpod. Your students will love lessons that combine engaging media with collaborative ways for them to show off how much they've learned. You'll love unlocking student understanding in real time and having reports to inform the next day's instruction. You'll wonder how you taught without it. Learn more and get started for free at nearpod.com.
All right, so again, that is a new feature that was just released for everyone on Nearpod, where you can take videos from YouTube, you can take your own videos that you've created, and then Nearpod already has lessons too, like thousands of video lessons that they've created that then you can take and you can edit those as well. So you can delete questions, add your own, and at this time, you can only do multiple choice or open-ended questions. All right, so in this part, looking at the time, this part I wanted you to be able to like click on your own time. So you've got a couple of options. You've got the welcome to Nearpod. You've got the launch a lesson. So you're gonna click on these and then you'll get some additional information. So it's gonna take you to another Nearpod. You can experience a lesson that includes like the 3D, the virtual field trips. You can look at the reports and what that gives you. You can search the lesson library, or they've got some try it now options. So I'm gonna set the timer for 10 minutes. You can go ahead, and these are clickable, so they're hyperlink, or they're linked for you to access, and then go ahead and engage with those. Try not to lose this tab, because then we're gonna come back and then look at what you were able to discover. So I'm gonna set a timer for 10 minutes. And if you have questions, I'll be in the chat. 20-minute video, like to can video be adjusted like that? You know what, Amber, that's a good question. And I want to say yes, that you can edit the video, like you can cut it down. You know what, I'm gonna check right now, actually. I'll play with one and get back to you. Let's see. The Nearpod one's not linked, or the report one, Javier? So who's that asked me for it? Amber, it looks like that I can't edit the video. So I'm gonna show on my shared screen. I just looked up a video on YouTube, and then I clicked it and I clicked save. And yeah, I don't see where I can edit the video. But they do have a send a suggestions. Maybe we can say that to them. That would be a good thing to have, because I know that you can do that in edpuzzle. I know that you can do that. Javier, I'm gonna get the link. Presentation again. Okay, I will right now. Javier, I'm gonna get the link for the report one. I don't know why it's not popping up. I thought I did a good job of checking on my links. Javier, there's the link for the report one. Wait, sorry. I sent it to Christy by accident.
Someone asked a question. They were asking, you had mentioned something else that was similar to edpuzzle, but wasn't edpuzzle, and they were wondering what that was that you had mentioned.
Oh yeah, it was edCamp. Actually, they changed their name. It's called PlayPosit. Sorry. I just put the link in the chat. So they switched it from edCamp to PlayPosit. We have 2 minutes left. All right, time's up. If you can come back to our Nearpod lesson, and I'm going to go ahead and move forward. All right, so I want you to think about, how do you think, after like experiencing some of the links, how do you think Nearpod can make a significant impact on your classroom? So I've set up this collaborative board. I did want to share with you, if you are looking at my shared screen, that you'll notice that every time I come to the collaborative board, it asks me, do I want to approve student comments first? So it's a way of moderating your students. So if I click yes, then, or well, let's go ahead and I'll demonstrate what that looks like. So I've said yes, that I want to moderate them. And this is a great tool, especially like for students to start experimenting with like a shared space of sharing their work. But it's a great time to talk about digital citizenship. So you can set it up first where you are moderating, and then over time you can start to wean the kids off, right? And set those expectations. So you'll notice, if you're looking on my shared screen again, up in these blue, the first blue square to the left, there is a number in a red circle that lets me know that, hey, you have like 8 comments. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And then this little screen pops up at the bottom. So now I can go ahead and go through them and go ahead and just start clicking. And it also lets me know how many are still pending. I can go ahead and X out if I don't want to, if I don't want to accept it. The other thing too, let's say you do have students who make the not so wise choice about putting something that is inappropriate. Even if you click the X on there, it won't appear for students to see. However, it will be there for the teacher to access later. So if you want to have a conversation with that student individually, if you want to bring in their parents to have that conversation, you always have that piece of evidence to show that that they had made a wrong choice. And so the hope is that they will go ahead and make better choices going forward. So that's one way to do it. So I just wanted to demonstrate for you what that moderation tool looks like. And so again, you would have students to go ahead and read what they wrote. And so I see that people are saying, more engagement in lessons, um, engagement again, that we've got some formative assessments going on. So thank you all for sharing in that space. Oh, we have one more. Yes, definitely engaging adults. I present at many conferences, and so I love using Nearpod. And it doesn't matter whatever my topic is. I'm using Nearpod as my platform to go ahead and present to teachers because it allows them to be really engaging. All right, so something that I wanted to highlight. Oh my God, I only have 2 minutes. Okay, so something that I wanted to demonstrate a little. So after like you've experienced some of it, the back end of what Nearpod has to offer, I wanted to highlight the voice and choice options that are here. So you've got to experience like the drawing slide, the collaborative slide, even the poll slide where you can set it up so that way students can choose like what direction we should move into. So if you have a couple of Nearpods waiting for them to access, then you can let them like have a poll and then send out that link for that Nearpod for everyone to jump onto. And then also with the open-ended slide, there is text, there's audio, so just a lot of ways to really give students choice in how they're going to respond, and then allow them to highlight their voice as well. So some lessons and activities that you could do this with, definitely with HyperDocs, with choice boards and differentiated activities. So let's take a look at those. So here's one example where I'm going to use, I actually, even to set up that slide where you got to choose what option you wanted, or what pathway you wanted to choose, you actually do that on a Google slide. And what you do is after you've created that Google slide, so like for this one, I would set this up, do it the same way that I'm doing it with you with my students. And then the square is linked and also the circle. So if you're able to do breakout groups with your students, you could still do this in breakout groups. They're going to go ahead and choose which one. And while students can't answer on the same Nearpod, you can tell, like I always tell them, make sure that you put both of your names. So in that first part where it says, put your name or whatever, they're going to put all their members' names on there. And then they have a space too where it says optional. They can also, if there's more than 2 people, they can put the additional names at the bottom. But you're basically using a Google slide to set up your links. And what I do then is when I go to file on that Google slide deck, I'm going to go make it public. And the reason why I do that is because sometimes Nearpod can be funky if you just use the share link. Sometimes it won't pop up for kids and all these other things happen. So I found that the best way to do it is if I'm in my slide deck, okay, I come to file, I come down to publish to the web, I click on that, and usually, because this has already been published, what usually happens is the option that's there will say like make or publish. I think that's what it says. So you would click that, and then I'm going to take this slide, this link that I have right here, and if I'm, building my Nearpod, then I'm going to use web content. That's one of the slide options in Google Slides under Nearpod or in Nearpod itself, and then that's where I'm going to put that link. And so what happens is then we get this. When the kids come to that part, it's going to pop up. The slide remains. It keeps all of the links, and then this allows me to differentiate. Okay. Another thing that I like to explain to people is like using that library that Nearpod has to offer. Whenever you take a lesson from the library and add it to your library, if you plan on modifying it for any reason, like maybe you want to modify it so that way group A only deals with some of the questions that are there, and then group B, you can view the lesson how it is. But anytime that you're going to modify it, make a duplicate copy. You always want to retain your original. Okay. So definitely something to think about, that when you are in Nearpod and you take those lessons from the library and you add them to your own personal library on Nearpod, that if you're going to modify it in any way, always duplicate it so that way you can retain the original, and then you can modify it so that way you can differentiate. Right, so that's one thing. The second thing I wanted to show you is you can do Nearpod choice boards. So like here's one that I set up for science. So, you know, while I made this in Buncee, you can do it anywhere that you want to. But what I did was I went through some of the science. So you can go through your science standards. You can do this for social. You can do it for anything, social studies, any topic, math. Find what lessons you want. And what you're going to do is instead of doing live lessons with each of those lessons, you're actually going to set them up in student pace. And then you're going to take those codes and you're going to put them here on a choice board. So I went on ahead and created mine on Buncee because I wanted the animations. And then my students, I'm going to give them up to maybe 2 weeks to complete it. So that way they're just going to go through on their time, go ahead and use the codes. Here's something that you want to keep in mind too. With student PACE codes, now you can have those codes to remain up to a year. So that same code you can use for 365 days. FYI, for live lessons, those codes only last for 14 days. Okay, so live lesson, 14 days with codes. For student PACE lessons, you can keep that code for up to a year. All right, so that's another way where I've set up a choice board. I've set up all these student PACE codes, put them on a choice board, and then my students can do them at their leisure. And then another way that I love to use Nearpod is to set up like almost like a hyperdoc within Nearpod. All right, so here's a lesson. So I start them off by engaging them, read the article on the next slide. I linked it to the biography page that I wanted them to read. Okay. After that, I have them to go ahead. So this is a draw it slide that I've set up. They're going to go ahead and use the draw it tools. They can either write it out or use the text box. And they're going to tell me what themes were evident in that article that they read. And then they're going to circle the one that they want to focus on. Then on the next slide, I set them up with the directions. Use the Library of Congress and the biography websites to choose 4 images. Again, they're going to do that all right here in Nearpod. It takes them there. They're going to go ahead and find images that they can use. They're going to save them on their device. I also let them go to the Library of Congress to find. And now they're going to, again, this is a draw it slide, and I put the background there. They're going to use the upload option that's in the draw it slide to bring in those 4 images that they chose that goes along with their theme. Okay. This type of lesson, I'm not doing it live. I'm doing it student pace. So that way they can move back and forth between the slides as they need to, and then add their information. After they do that, they have their open-ended question where they're going to go ahead and now they're going to do their writing. So how do your chosen images support the theme you've chosen and use at least 3 pieces of evidence from each image that you've chosen? Okay. When kids choose images, can it also be a screenshot? Yes, they can screenshot it or download it however they want. They just need to make sure that it's on their device and then they're going to bring it in. Is there a way to edit a student PACE assignment? I had assigned one and found a mistake that I want to fix, but I couldn't. Yeah, once you edit any lesson, it loses all the codes. There's no way around that. Is Nearpod? Yes, it is able to be added to Canvas. On that webpage you add it, does it take them to another tab? Do you mean like this one? It opens up right into like Nearpod, the article. Yeah. Here we go. Yes, that one does open up into another tab kind of. And then the minute that they move forward, it goes away. Okay, so those are like 3 big ways that I love to use Nearpod with students. I know that we're down to the last minute. Are there any questions that you have? I'll also give you the link for the student PACE code so that way you can access all of this. And I'll place that in the chat. Do you have any questions? You can even unmute yourselves or type in the chat. When you add audio, is it immersive reader? Oh, thank you for bringing that up, Nairi. So, okay, so there are two things going on, Nairi. When you can add audio now to allow students to add, audio, so that way when they're on the draw it slide, they can, or even on the open-ended question, they can record their voice instead. That all has to be done in your settings. So I'm gonna go to my profile, go to lesson settings, and even for immersive reader, so you'll see right here, immersive reader, I have to enable that. If you're not familiar with immersive reader is now in Nearpod, it's in Wonderopolis, it's on Flipgrid, a lot of places now. But what immersive reader basically does is it takes text that is on a slide, and if you click, if a student clicks it or anyone clicks it on that slide, then what happens is another window opens up and it will take all the text that's there and it will read it to the student. They can control the speed of that reading, they can control the language, they can make it so that way it reads one line at a time, or you can chunk it in 3 lines, or you can chunk it so that way it's the whole thing. You can change font. I think there are like 4 different fonts that they can choose from. They can also like highlight the nouns or highlight the verbs. Yes, it's also in Wakelet. Thank you, Nairi. So that is controlled by the teacher. So again, you would come to your profile, go to lesson settings, and then you have immersive reader, you would need to turn that on. If you want students to be able to take notes, like I had advised you all to do earlier, that also lies at the hands of the teacher. So you would have to turn those on if you want students to access it. You see you've got other options, the quiz and multiple choice question results. If you want that to appear for students, you would turn that on. If you want students to be able to resubmit answers, you have control over that. Also, a new thing that was just added. So before, when students did student pace lessons, they could skip lessons and not have to answer anything. And so we begged Nearpod for years. And then after what happened last spring, when we all had to go to remote learning, Nearpod worked really hard to put that in place. And so now, when you set up student-paced lessons, you can set it so that way students have to give a response before they can move on to the next slide. So that's for all interactive slides. But that's all here in your settings for you to control. Thank you, Nairi, for bringing that up. All right, and that is our time. We're past time. Again, I'll put the link for the student pace lesson for you to have access to this. And I will stop sharing my screen. Oh, yes, I did tell you to remind me, Darren.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your wonderful knowledge with us. Lots of great information. Thank you so much.
Darlene, do you mind sending me or can you put your email in the chat?